I wanted to clear my name, right? So it can be able to open up the door to my kids have a fair legacy to build.
He was banned. He was hated. Fans booed him before he even touched the track. And yet, he came back. Not just to compete, but to beat the greatest sprinter in history. So the question is, how is Justin Gatlin still one of the greatest athletes of all time?
The greatness that I am today. You know, I worked hard and I put that work in.
In 2004, Gatlin reached the top of the world. At the Olympic Games in Athens, he became the fastest man alive. In a race so close, it felt unreal. He defeated Maurice Green, the defending champion. That moment wasn't luck. It was precision, timing, execution. Gatlin didn't dominate with style. He dominated with efficiency. And for a moment, he was the future of sprinting.
It was a few things. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'm legit. I've been legit since I was a little kid.
But if you want to understand why Justin Gatlin is still considered one of the greatest, you have to understand his lowest point. Because greatness isn't built at the top. It's revealed at the bottom. In 2006, Gatlin was no longer just an Olympic champion. He was the face of American sprinting, the man expected to dominate the next era. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. Expectations, sponsorships, national pride. Everything was pointing in one direction. Win. No matter what. Then came the test. A positive result for testosterone. And just like that, everything he had built collapsed overnight. His Olympic gold suddenly meant less. His victories were questioned. And the narrative changed instantly. Not a champion, a cheat. The reaction was brutal. Media turned against him. Fans turned against him. Sponsors disappeared. And in a sport already haunted by doping scandals, Gatlin became the example, the warning, the name people used when they talked about what was wrong with track and field. He was banned for 4 years. 4 years in a sport where careers are short, 4 years during what should have been his prime. And during that time, everything kept moving without him. New stars emerged, new records were set, and the world forgot, or worse. They remembered him only for one thing. But here's the truth that makes his story different. Most athletes never come back from this. Not physically, not mentally, not publicly. Because once your name is broken, it's almost impossible to rebuild it. And that's why this moment matters. Because this isn't just where Gatlin fell. This is where his real story begins.
Because I love the sport. I love it, Doug.
When Justin Gatlin returned, nobody believed in him. Not the media, not the fans, not even the sport itself. Because by then, sprinting had a new king. Usain Bolt. Bolt wasn't just dominant. He was legendary. World records, Olympic golds, global fame. He wasn't just winning. He was redefining what speed looked like. And Gatlin? He was the past. A name people didn't trust anymore. But slowly, something unexpected started to happen. Gatlin began to win again. Not once, not twice, but consistently. His times improved. His starts became sharper. His confidence returned. By 2014, 2015, he wasn't just competitive. He was one of the fastest men in the world again. In 2015, he ran 9.74 seconds. One of the fastest times in history, at an age where most sprinters decline. That alone was extraordinary. But what made it even more unbelievable was who he was racing against. Usain Bolt, the greatest sprinter ever, the man the world loved. And every time they faced each other, the stadium had already chosen a side. Bolt was the hero. Gatlin was the villain. The boos were loud. Sometimes louder than the cheers, but Gatlin kept running, kept competing, kept improving. And that's what makes this story different. Because greatness isn't always about being loved. Sometimes it's about showing up anyway, competing anyway, winning anyway, against the odds, against the narrative, against the entire world. And that's exactly what Justin Gatlin did. By 2017, the story had already been written. This was supposed to be Usain Bolt's farewell. One last race. One final moment. One perfect ending. The world wasn't watching for competition. They were watching for closure, for legacy, for the greatest sprinter of all time to finish his story the right way. And standing next to him was Justin Gatlin. Not the hero, not the favourite, but the one man nobody wanted to see win. The stadium made that clear. The boos started before the race even began. Loud, relentless, personal. Every step Gatlin took onto the track felt like he was walking into rejection. But when the gun fired, none of that mattered. Because in that moment, it was just speed. Pure, unfiltered. And Gatlin delivered one of the most composed races of his career. His start was sharp, his transition clean, his top speed controlled, no panic, no hesitation, just execution. Bolt was there, but not unstoppable anymore. The gap was small, but it was real. And when they crossed the line, everything froze. Justin Gatlin had won. He beat Usain Bolt in Bolt's final individual race. It should have been the greatest moment of his comeback. But it wasn't. Because the crowd didn't celebrate. They booed. Not quietly, but loudly. As if the result itself was wrong. As if reality had broken the script. And this is where the story changes. Because in that moment, Gatlin had a choice. Celebrate or understand. And what he did next defined his legacy. He walked over to Bolt, and he bowed. Not as a champion showing dominance, but as a competitor showing respect. In front of a crowd that rejected him, he chose humility. In a moment that should have been about himself, he made it about something bigger. And that's what makes this victory different. Because it wasn't just about winning. It was about enduring, competing at the highest level, even when the entire world wanted a different ending. Because greatness isn't always about being the best. Sometimes it's about standing alone and still crossing the finish line first. But if you really want to understand why Justin Gatlin is still in the conversation, you have to look beyond the medals, beyond the controversy, beyond even the victories. Because what truly separates him is time. In sprinting, time is everything. Not just on the clock, but across careers. Most sprinters have a window, a few peak years, and then they fade. But Gatlin didn't follow that pattern. He extended it. He survived it. And somehow, he redefined it. He competed at the highest level across multiple generations, from the era of Maurice Greene to Usain Powell to Usain Bolt, and even into the next wave of sprinters. That's not normal. That's not expected. That's not supposed to happen in a sport built on explosive youth. And yet, Gatlin kept showing up, year after year, race after race, still competitive, still dangerous. Even in his mid-30s, he was running times that most athletes could only dream of in their prime. He wasn't just present, he was relevant. And that's the difference. Because being great for a moment is one thing, but staying great across decades, across eras, across narratives, that's something else entirely. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable truth of all. Because no matter how people feel about him, no matter what they choose to remember, Justin Gatlin never disappeared. He never stopped competing. He never stopped chasing the top. And in a sport where careers end quickly, he stayed. And sometimes, staying is what makes you great. So, is Justin Gatlin the greatest? Not by records, not by popularity, but by something else. Resilience, longevity, and the ability to come back when the world had already written him off. Because greatness isn't just about how high you rise. It's about how you return after you fall.